What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. The remixed and remastered Mutant is out. It just came out yesterday in stores. I got my pre-order Wednesday night, and I've been listening to it since Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and drop my review for this because with this being a remix album, you know, it's kind of it's more or less like a first impression kind of comparison, and that's really what I'm going to kind of get into today is comparison. I'm going to compare the tracks, and I'm going to do a track by track comparison. So let's go ahead and actually look at this version of the album and go through it real quick before I get into that, because that's going to be a little more time consuming. That, of course, is the front. That is a pretty dope cover. That is pretty dope artwork. I love it a lot. It really adds to the whole Mutant aspect, so that is cool. Taking a look at the back with the track listings, and I'll go ahead and go over the tracks now, and we'll get more in depth, and I'll reveal my favorite tracks afterwards. But the transformation of a new civilization, Get Off of Me, Stardust, Familiar, Madness, Fuck You Part 2, Jenny's a Fat Bitch, Fantasy, Who Am I, The Truth Will Set You Free, Respirator, Triple Threat, Starve Your Fear, Mannequin, why the fuck was I trying to say human, and Note to Self. So that is the tracks exactly like the original. So that's cool. They didn't take anything off. I almost wondered if they were going to take off the mannequin just because Jay's on it. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck that beef shit. Anyway, there's the CD. I'm getting like way ahead of myself here. I'm trying to get to the track by track because I know that's going to be very time consuming. But anyway, there is the CD art there. Back behind the disc is a fucking eyeball looking at you. And there's the track listings again. It's kind of, it is, but it's not like the original as far as like layout, I guess. Nah, fuck that. It's nothing like the original. You got a little story here, you know, just going over what the mutant, or what mutant is. You know, the evolution of a man to mutant is the genetic breakdown of the body. If you want to read that, go buy a copy and read it yourself. And then it's got the credits right here, which, you know, it was all remixed by Seven. So the video I put out where I said that I wondered if this was a test for the wickedness, I'm completely removing that 100%. I don't believe that that is why they did this. I honestly think that they loved the way Gang Rags Reborn turned out so well that they took more or less a black sheep out of their discography and amped it up. And, you know, maybe the reason they chose Mutant, because I honestly believe that Heartbroken and Homicidal is a bigger black sheep than Mutant was. But I feel like the reason they chose that is, of course, because they were doing touring with Wickedness. I think the Wickedness contributed a fact of why they chose to remix and remaster Mutant. But I think, obviously, Reborn, Gang Rags Reborn, turned out so well that maybe that's why they decided to do it. Purely speculation. I have no idea why they chose to do it. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to get into some track by track kind of comparisons, because I've stated it a million times, and I'm probably going to state it a million more times. I do not like remixes, but as of lately, some remixes are really impressing the shit out of me. On A World Upside Down, on DJ Clay's last mixtape, I loved the Scream remix that Joe Strange did versus the original. I felt like that was a much better version. So what I got here is the original Mutant. And one thing I want to talk about real quick, just real fucking quick. I watched Juggalo Talk's review of this, and he actually picked up the remaster, which is different than this. This is the original. But he picked up the remaster, which has a different back here and everything, which is cool. But on it, they stripped all this shit here off, and instead you got the skull lungs and you got the Magic Ninja logo, which is cool. But I really feel like they should have left the Psychopathic on there. And I know people are probably going to argue with me on that that's fucked up because it's a Magic Ninja release. But the original album came out on Psychopathic, and I feel like it should have stayed on. The production and everything, all they did was remaster it, and then they released it on Magic, and they stripped the Psychopathic off. To me, that was fucked up because the album came out on Psychopathic, so I don't think that they should have done that. I 100% feel that they should not have done that. A lot of people are going to argue with me, especially the Twiztid fam. They're going to fucking argue. They're going to say, no. But anyway, here we go into the track by track. And I'm basically going to say, I'm just going to go through the tracks and say which one I liked better and which ones I liked the same, because some of them I liked the same. I really did. But in the end, at the end, I'm going to give you a playlist that I made on my iTunes account of kind of a true version of Mutant, if you will. It's the tracks that I like the best. I put them in a playlist to make out the Mutant album with the way it could be played in your car. So let's go ahead and start it off. The Transformation of a New Civilization. Now, I really did like the remix a lot. I loved the remix a lot. And I had a hard time deciding which one I liked better. Ultimately, the decision was made. I went with the original, and the reason I did that is because Mutant was originally supposed to be a part 2 to a two-part story. It was Man's Myth and Mutant. And to listen to, if I was going to listen to Man's Myth and then jump into the Mutant album, to listen to the remix of Transformation of a New Civilization versus the original ties in better sound-wise, beat-wise, and everything. It ties in better with Man's Myth. So I chose the Transformation of a New Civilization from the original. I love them both a lot. They both were really great, but ultimately, I went with the original. Get Off of Me. This one was kind of another one that was like, it was a little tougher to decide, but I loved the remix better. I did love the remix better, but the original was pretty dope. Stardust, I kind of had the same issues a little bit, but I feel like the way that the beat broke down during the chorus on the remix went a lot better with the song overall than the original did. So I like the remix a little bit better than the original, though they both are really good. Familiar was yet another tough decision for me. The original is really good, but the way that the remix starts off slow and builds, and the way it takes off is really good. So I ultimately decided to go with the remix versus the original, just because the way the song builds in the beginning, I like that a lot. So I chose the remix, and I put that in the playlist. The Madness was another tough one, and I'm probably going to say that shit a lot, so get prepared for it. Madness, I had troubles with too, but once again, I feel like the beat in the original, I don't think the lyrics, the vocals did not match very well with the beat, and in the remix, it did. It matched a lot better. So I like the remix better, and that's the one I put in my playlist. And Fuck You Part 2, now the remix, I don't fully, I'm kind of with Scotty Two Balls. He posted a review up on TrueJugglowFamily.com, and in his little track-by-track review, he said that basically the remix of Fuck You Part 2 should just basically be Fuck You Part 3. It's not rock at all. It's more or less Man's Myth's version of Fuck You remixed. That honestly is what it is, because Fuck You Part 2 on the original Mutant is different than Man's Myth. The whole way they do the little skit track, whatever, is different. And the remix is more basically the original Man's Myth Fuck You remixed. So on my playlist, I went with the original Fuck You Part 2 because it is different and it stands out from Man's Myth. Jenny's a Fat Bitch, they're virtually the same track on the original and the remix. The only difference is the original Fantasy starts off with the remainder of the Jenny's a Fat Bitch skit laced into the beat as the song starts, and the one on the remix is the full skit in its entirety. So on my playlist, I went ahead and chose the original Jenny's a Fat Bitch because it is shorter. And for the next reason, when we get to Fantasy, I love the original Fantasy so much fucking better than the remix. But don't get me wrong, I love the remix a lot, but I feel like the original did better, because Fantasy is kind of it's definitely more of a rap song of like, oh yeah, bitch, you want to fantasize about me? Fuck yeah, let's make that fantasy real. And the remix slowed it down to a point where it's more of an R&B style song, to me, is the way I take it, which isn't bad. I bet it's a great song to fuck to. I haven't tried it yet, but the way it's slowed down and the way the beat goes in the remix, it's kind of like, oh yeah, come on baby, let's fulfill your fantasy. It's a little different, and I feel like the original one is a little bit better, especially having the skit of Jenny's a Fat Bitch. You have the Hound Dogs coming up to you, so I like the original better, and that's the one that ended up on the playlist. Next up, you got Who Am I? This one took me a little bit of a minute to figure out which one I like better, but when I got to it quick and held on to it. There was no second guessing. But I like the remix better of Who Am I? The original one's good, but it kind of takes off right off the bat into the song, and the remix is another one just like Familiar. It starts off a little slower and builds up, and I love the way that was executed. So I love the remix of Who Am I better, and that's what made it into my playlist. So next up, The Truth Will Set You Free. 100% had no problems with this. The original is 10 times fucking better than the remix. I just love the way the song starts, you know, the and the other thing is, on the chorus, you know, when they say the truth will set you free, you know, you got the beat funky boom, 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 right there with them saying it. There was kind of a little bit of that in the remix, but the song went so much better with the beat from the original one. So that's the one that made it to my playlist. Now, Respirator was a no-brainer. I absolutely love the original a lot, but the remix of Respirator was what made me buy this album, is what made me pick up the remix and remastered version. So I had to pick the Respirator one. I feel like the way that they slowed the song down went better with the theme of the song. Like I said, I like the original, but it starts off right into it. Just, it's too fast paced for the song, I think. You know, you have a sometimes just stop to just take a breath. It's going real fast. It needs to slow down. You know, you got the sometimes you stop to just take a breath. You know, that guitar's just dun, 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 dun. It went better, way the fuck better than the original. So Respirator is what made it to the playlist. I'm gonna just hit the shit out of my desk. Next up is Triple Threat, and I didn't care for the remix at all. It's a rap song. I mean, you can't really you can't turn that into a rock song, and they did. To me, it didn't fit. I didn't care for it, so I went with the original, and that's the one that made it to the playlist. Next up, you got Starve Your Fear, and I went with the original one on this one because I don't feel like the beat on the remix really kind of matched the vocals. The first verse, because the way I did this comparison when I was listening to it, I put them all in a playlist, you know, the original remix, and I listened to a minute of each one, skipping, and then deciding from there which one to me was more pleasurable to listen to. So for this one, I chose the original because I feel like Jamie's verse did not match up with the beat on the remix at all, and it kind of really turned me off a lot. Next up is Mannequin. I love the original way the fuck better. They did something different with it. They made the chorus a rock. They have the chorus go into a rock kind of guitar riff and everything like that. I don't think it worked. I didn't care for it. So I went with the original on that one. I feel like that was a better version. And finally, we got Note to Self. Once again, I chose the original on this one for the same reasons as Starve You Fear. The metal kind of sound and riffs, I don't think it fit well with the song. And I know the original Note to Self kind of starts off slow, but I ultimately like the way the song plays out over the drums. The sound is just more pleasurable for me. So I chose the original Note to Self. That's the one that made it into the playlist. So that is my track by track comparison, and I'm going to go ahead and switch views for you real quick and show you the actual playlist. And if you have this on iTunes, you can rearrange the song like you like and see if you agree with me or not, and even go through and do what I did. Listen to them, you know, in order. Listen to the original first track, the original, or the remix first track, the original second track, the remix second track. Listen to a minute of each one and then skip through the album and just find which one feels more pleasurable to you to listen to, which one kind of grabs your attention more that first minute into the song. So let's go ahead and show you the playlist that I got. So there you can see the way that I have it all set up. To me, I actually, just before I did this review, I actually listened to this version right here, this playlist, and I feel like even though the remixes are they're remastered, so they're a little bit better sounding quality. I mean, there's 11 years between the original and the remix, but they really went together very well. I'm very happy with this playlist right here, and this is probably the version of Mutant that I will listen to the most. So, like I said, if you have this on iTunes, go try this playlist out for yourself. and tell me what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.